Hi, everyone. Welcome to EarthEcho's Snack-Sized Science. My name is Casey, and I'll be your host today. Now, we're going to talk about pH and ocean acidification. But before we get started, I want to add a little disclaimer. There are a lot of people using the internet these days. So if we run into any technical difficulties, any glitches, just hang tight and please be patient. There are a lot of people online. All right, let's go ahead and get started with today's snack-sized science. Chalk it up to ocean acidification. So let's review the materials that you will need. Okay, you will need some clear glasses. Now, if you have two clear glasses, great. If you want to grab a couple more, you could even do that as well because we just might need them. You will also need some tap water. Just plain tap water will do. Doesn't matter if it's hot or cold. You will also need some vinegar. Really, any household vinegar will work, but I have white distilled vinegar here with me. You will also need some chalk. Now, we did say on the list that we prefer white chalkboard chalk, but really, if you also have sidewalk chalk, because so many people are chalking their walks these days in their neighborhood, that is totally fine as well. Now, you will also need some antacids. Now, this is something that you probably have in your medicine cabinet, so go ahead and grab those. It is the chewable tablets is what we're looking for with those antacids. Now, you will also need a spoon. Spoon might help with stirring our liquids, and I even have actually a chopstick that works really well too. Now, you might also want to grab a towel or maybe even some paper towels because this might just get messy. All right, everyone. So today we're going to be looking at the pH of some liquids, and we'll be using water as one of our liquids, and the other is vinegar. Now, vinegar is actually a solution of an acidic acid as well as water. So what exactly is pH? Well, pH is a property of a liquid or a solution that you can measure, and it will tell us whether that liquid is acidic, basic, or neutral. So let's take a look at the pH scale that we have here. So if you look at a pH scale, you can see that it ranges from 0 to 14. Now, I will tell you, the lower the number of the pH scale, that means that that liquid is acid. So you can see on our pH scale that we have at 0 battery acid. We even have stomach acid at a pH of 1. We even have lemon juice and our vinegar at a pH of 2. Now, as we move up on the scale, as those numbers increase, that's where we find our bases. So at the very bottom with 14, you see liquid drain cleaner. 13, we have bleach. Even soapy water is at 12. That is a base. So acids, lower number, bases, higher number. Now, a neutral liquid will be somewhere in the middle. So what do you think a neutral's number would measure at? You've got it, 7. So you can see here, we have pure water. Even our tap water falls in that neutral at a pH of 7. You might also notice that seawater falls at a pH of 8. So I want to tell you all that you can actually measure the pH of various liquids using pH indicator. Now, some folks have EarthEcho Water Challenge test kits on hand, like I have here. Those come with some pH tablets that can help you figure out what the pH of your liquid is. Folks who have pools or even aquariums, you might have some pH test strips on hand. So you can do your own experiments and check out the pH of various liquids around your house. And spoiler alert, if you join us on Friday, we're going to show you exactly how to make your own pH indicator. But I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Okay, so to review, our acids have low numbers, our bases have high numbers. Our tap water is right in the middle at that neutral of 7. Now, ocean water is a pH of 8. So if tap water is 7, ocean water is 8, is that ocean water more basic or acidic than that tap water? You've got it. It is more basic. That number is increasing. So why exactly are they different? Well, tap water is mostly just the compound water, and ocean water is salt water. salt water is a solution of materials that dissolve in the water from erosion and other processes. So tap water and ocean water, their chemistry and their pH is just a little bit different from one another. Now that ocean again is more basic or alkaline than that tap water. And because the ocean is more alkaline, that means that the organisms that live in the ocean can use a compound called calcium carbonate to help build a variety of protections like shells. So we're going to find out why pH is so important to the ocean. So let's get started with our experiment. And let's start by seeing how materials interact with those liquids we have. Okay, everyone, get ready. Let's get our 2 cups that you have. Now, what we have here is we have a cup of tap water and a cup of vinegar. Now, I brought a measuring cup. What I want everybody to do is I want you to grab your tap water. Now, you can measure it out to be really precise, or you can just kind of eyeball it and make sure that that tap water and that vinegar is the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our liquids into our cups, and I'm going to put about a 1/4 cup of each of the liquids into my experiment cup. So I'm going to start with that tap water because you don't want to dilute that tap water with vinegar. So we're going to do our vinegar next. Okay, 1/4 cup. Excellent. Okay, so now we have the same amount of liquids and we are all set for our experiment. Now, I do want to tell you guys, I also have ocean water too. I live in Southwest Florida, so I went ahead and I grabbed some ocean water just to see how some of our materials would react. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get our chalk ready. Now, if you have chalkboard chalk, that white chalk, usually kind of looks like this. It's got you have a long piece. You're gonna wanna break it into smaller pieces. And it breaks pretty easily, you'll see. Now you'll want a piece that's about the size of your first knuckle. And I broke some pieces here, and try and grab 2 pieces that are about the same size. In my case, I'm gonna grab a 3rd piece for my ocean water. Now, if you do have sidewalk chalk, if that's all you have, no problem whatsoever. You can use that as well. But have that adult in the room take your spoon and go ahead and try and break a piece off and try and get some similar size pieces. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take our chalk. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to drop our chalk into our liquids. So, everyone, what do you think will happen when we drop our chalk in the liquid? Let's form a little hypothesis. Remember that vinegar is an acid, that tap water is neutral, and my ocean water, it's just a little bit more basic than that tap water. Okay, we're all going to drop this in. Ready? 3, 2, 1, drop. Okay, let's see what happens. All right, folks, I'm going to show you what's going on in my cups. So let's start with that tap water. And let's take a look. Okay, there's some bubbles coming off of that tap water a little bit. Let's check out my ocean water. Really not much going on with that chalk. Okay, now let's head over to that vinegar. Now I do have some bubbles, and I will tell you, when I dropped my piece of chalk, I'm going to grab another one to do this. It started bubbling away. What about yours? What happened? You see bubbles? Look real close. Okay, all right, so keep those observations going. Now we're going to move on to our next material that we have, that antacid. Now, if you happen to have another set of glasses that you can get a clean sample of tap water and a clean sample of vinegar, go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do, I actually have 2 pre-measured cups already ready to go. So I'm going to switch mine out. Now, if you don't have extra cups, if all you have is what your chalk is in, don't worry. You can just still use that. Just keep that going and it will be absolutely fine. But I'm going to go ahead and change out my cups. All right, let me make sure. Woo, that's the vinegar. Okay, so now let's grab our antacids. Okay, so let's get 2 antacids. I'm going to grab 3 because remember I have that ocean water. Okay, so now what do you think is going to happen when we drop our tablets in? Any thoughts? Okay, ready to drop, everyone? 3, 2, 1. Woo! All right, let's make some observations. So first, let's start with that tap water. Okay, really not much going on in there. Okay, ocean water. Really, okay, kind of looks similar to that tap water. Ooh, now check out that vinegar. Wow. Okay, my water's even a little bit cloudy. Is yours bubbling? Mine is bubbling a lot. In fact, it kind of looks like I even dropped a different kind of antacid tab in there. So what is going on? What does all of this mean? So that chalk in the vinegar bubbled a little bit, maybe, not so much, but that antacid really bubbled, right? So everybody do me a favor. Grab that container of antacid, look at the back, and read what the main active ingredient is. What do you see? Calcium carbonate. Remember that? So what is calcium carbonate? Well, calcium carbonate is a substance or chemical compound that's found in a lot of materials. In fact, it's found in chalk, it's found in antacid, and believe it or not, it's found in ocean animals, in particular, the ocean animals that make their own shells. So can you think of any ocean animals that build their own shells? Let's think about this. What would have a shell in the ocean? Aha, what about seashells, right? Now this seashell, we call it a mollusk. If this was in the ocean, more than likely there'd be a snail living inside. And believe it or not, the snail is the animal that builds this shell out of calcium carbonate. You might also think of this kind of seashell. Now, this kind of seashell has 2 shells usually. Again, there's an animal inside that builds this shell. Can you think of another example of an animal that might have 2 shells? Some people like to eat them. Yeah, clams and oysters. Ooh, that sounds tasty. Okay, so what else might build a shell in the ocean? Think of an animal that might have a hard body. People like to eat them. You've got it, crabs, lobsters, excellent. So all of these animals build their own shells using calcium carbonate. There's even other animals like plankton who build their own shells, very important. Also, there's even other animals that build their own shells or build their own skeletons, then form a colony, which in turn is part of a huge community. And that animal is none other than corals. Hard corals build a calcium carbonate or limestone skeleton. Now, this coral is made up of hundreds, even thousands of tiny little coral animals that work together to build a colony. And then, of course, this coral would be part of a larger community like an ocean's coral reef. And believe it or not, coral reefs are so important, everyone, that they rival rainforests, and about 25% of all known animals in the ocean rely on a coral reef at one point or another in its lifetime. So corals are super important to build those reefs. Now, believe it or not, we are seeing more and more animals that build their own shells, build weaker and more brittle shells. So what is happening? Well, the ocean is becoming more acidic. How? Well, when we burn fossil fuels like coal and gas, we create a lot of carbon dioxide that goes into our atmosphere. Now, there is carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that's there naturally, but there's a whole lot of extra carbon dioxide because of the fossil fuels we burn. So the Earth tries to regulate itself. It gets a little help from the land and from the ocean. Now, when the ocean absorbs a lot of carbon dioxide, a little bit more than it's used to, it begins to change the chemistry of the ocean. And we call this ocean acidification because that chemical reaction is making the ocean more acidic. And therefore, these animals that all build their own shells, they have a really hard time doing that. And so we're seeing animals build weaker shells. So you can kind of think of this like us needing vitamins and nutrients in order to build really strong bones and to stay healthy. So remember, that ocean water is around the pH of 8. It's a little bit more basic than that tap water. Now, since the Industrial Revolution, believe it or not, we have seen the pH of the ocean shift. It is getting a lower number and it is becoming more acidic because of those fossil fuels that we're burning. So you can learn more about ocean acidification if you visit EarthEcho's website at www.earthecho.org. Be sure to check out Expedition Shell Shocks. There are amazing resources there, activities where you can take things a little bit further, and a lot of great videos too. And you can discover what you can do to help curb that ocean acidification. All right, so we want to take some questions coming in from YouTube. Now, I do want to call out Maggie, who is watching on YouTube, because you have had great observations coming in. Believe it or not, we have our eyes on you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type those questions in the chat. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and recap what we did today. First, let's take a look at those materials one more time and just remind our viewers out there, if you want to replicate this experiment, this is what you need. You need some clear glasses. You need maybe tap water and vinegar. If you have a spoon, great, because you can stir things up. And if you take a peek at your chalk and your antacid, maybe check out what they're doing. You will need some chalk. You will need antacid, again, the chewable kind. Grab a towel or paper towels because sometimes this can get a little messy. I kind of slop some water everywhere. Now, then what you will do is you will measure out equal parts of those liquids in your cups, and then you will drop in your experiment, your substances. Now, I do want to tell you guys, you can take this experiment a little bit further because, one, you can just simply keep observing what is happening with our chalk and with our antacids. You can also maybe find some things that are made of calcium carbonate around your house. So if you might happen to have, say, a seashell lying around, or even some coral, you can actually break a piece of this coral off, or even you can use an entire seashell, and you can replicate this entire experiment. And I will tell you, I did that this weekend to prepare for you all. And I want to show you what my observations were. So take a look at this shell. And this shell is the one that I had submersed in water. So this shell is still intact. You can see it. It's a really nice, pretty shell, actually. And I had its partner shell submersed in vinegar. So what do you think you're going to see when I reveal that other shell? All right, let's see if you're correct. Take a look at that, everyone. Do you believe what that shell looks like? Now, I will tell you that this shell, when I started this experiment, and I put this one in water and this one in vinegar, I thought I could let those sit for 3 or 4 days to prepare for this lab. But guess what? I kept checking back in on the shells, kept checking back in, and after only 12 hours, this is what that shell looks like. So I actually stopped my experiment because I was nervous I wouldn't have a shell to show you guys. So just kind of be aware. And so if you do this experiment at home with something else that might be made of calcium carbonate, you can try and replicate it just like I did. And a fun activity is just make your observations, maybe even check on your experiment every hour, and that might be super helpful. Now, if you don't have a seashell or a piece of coral lying around the house, that is perfectly okay, because guess what else you can use? A plain old chicken egg. So if you have any eggs in the fridge, you can go ahead and replicate this experiment with eggs in vinegar. Now, I started this experiment yesterday. Actually, I'm going to show you all this because it's really weird. So I'm going to try and hold this egg next to the other one just so you can see the color difference that I'm seeing right now. You can see that this one has turned much, much lighter. You can see we've got a lot of froth and bubbles in this little mason jar that I have this submersed in. And you can even see bits and pieces of that shell kind of floating all around. So that shell is breaking down. And so you can actually try this experiment at home. put a eggshell or put a full raw egg, yes, you heard me right, put a full raw egg in that tap water, and then put another in vinegar, and you can compare what is happening to those eggshells. It is pretty incredible. Now, I will tell you that if you try the egg experiment at home, you may want to change out that vinegar probably every day because you've got a lot of bits and pieces in there. So, all right, everyone, you're doing great. So let's check in on those questions. And it looks like we have some questions coming in from YouTube. Now, of course, those animals out there in the ocean, a lot of them do want to build shells for protection. For example, if you're a snail crawling around, would you want to just be a slug? Hey, a step up might be to build your own shell. So you're definitely protected. Now, I did mention that a snail lives in this shell and that another animal lives in this shell too. Now, a lot of people think that these shells are just lying around the ocean, empty all the time, and that a slug might crawl into it and call it a home, and then a crab also might crawl into it and call it a home. I will tell you that the snails that live inside these shells are the ones that build these shells. It is actually part of their body. Now, if you ever find, say, a hermit crab inside one of these shells, that hermit crab was definitely, it either maybe ate that snail inside the shell, or maybe that snail passed away and that shell was indeed empty. And so that hermit crab could then occupy that shell and call it a home. So lots of animals in the ocean need protection and they will build those shells. So to build shells, they will actually take, it's kind of a strange chemical process. So we'll try and walk through this. So they will take calcium carbonate from that seawater. Now remember, seawater different than tap water because there's erosion happening from the land. There's lots of minerals mixed in there. Now that calcium carbonate will combine into solid chrysalis and it will form calcium carbonate that shells are made of. So it's actually taking nutrients, taking a compound from the water and using it, and it's reacting and making its own processes with its body in order to do it. So it looks like we have another question coming in from our friend Maddie. Do shells not break down? Oh, this is great. Why do shells not break down when you dye Easter eggs? This is such a great question from Mandy out there, and I might know that, Mandy. Hello. So if we think about this, so when we are dyeing eggs for a holiday, it tells you to use vinegar, right? But let's think about this. So those tablets, so this might be a fun project. If anybody has egg dye kits lying around, let's try and replicate this experiment, and we'd love to see your results with this. Try dyeing some eggs in tablets that are immersed in tap water versus that vinegar, and let's figure out what's going on there. Now, if we are dyeing eggs using that vinegar, think about how long we leave our eggs in there. Now, I showed you my egg experiment that I started just yesterday. In fact, should we take this out and look at it? We can maybe see. This might get a little messy, but that's all right. It's science. So let's see what's actually happening with this egg. Oh my Lord. Okay, I'm gonna try and grab my other camera. Holy wow. Because this egg, I will tell you guys, this egg is completely soft. Look at this. Oh my gosh. This egg is completely gelatinous and soft. It almost feels like it's a soft boiled egg. I've never done this before, obviously, so this is really fun and exciting. So think about when we are dyeing eggs for holidays. Are you leaving those eggs in the dye for 24 hours, 36 hours? Probably not, right? We're probably only leaving those eggs in that dye. I think the max I've ever done that is maybe 30 minutes. So that vinegar is really not going to affect that egg. And also think about, does it matter if the egg is hard boiled or raw? Maybe we can experiment with that. So I really hope you all try this. If you have egg dyeing kits at home, let's try a little experiment. Try and do raw eggs versus hard boiled eggs. Try and do that tablet immersed in tap water versus immersed in vinegar. And maybe you can send us some hypothesis of what you think is going on there. Oh, that is great. Well, I want to say hello to my nephew Max. That was his question that came in from Mandy. Thank you. So, are hermit crabs in the ocean bigger than the ones you see at the pet store? That is a wonderful question. So, there are lots of different types, different species of hermit crabs out there. There are hundreds of different species of crabs altogether. Now, the hermit crabs are the ones that live in those seashells. So the ones that you find at the pet store, those are typically land hermit crabs. Now, all crabs, they do use gills to breathe. They breathe very differently than we do. So what they do is they need water. So a lot of times, if you were to go to the pet store and buy a hermit crab, they will tell you, keep a wet sponge in that tank, in that habitat, or keep a little pool of water, a little thing of water for those crabs, because those crabs definitely need that water in order to wet down their gills and in order to breathe. Now, those crabs are pretty tiny. I will tell you, I'm not exactly sure how large those crabs you would buy at the pet store, how large they can actually get. I think I'm going to Google that when we're finished here today. But I will tell you, there are some hermit crabs in the ocean that get pretty big. And those hermit crabs, some of them are totally beautiful, very bright red body color and bright blue eyes. So I encourage everybody, when we're finished today, Google hermit crabs and see what different kinds you can find. Crabs are one of my favorite animals. They belong to a group called arthropods, and they're just so awesome and so diverse. Check out a Sally Lightfoot crab. It's not a hermit crab, but it's a really colorful, beautiful crab. There's a Halloween crab, a Christmas tree crab. I could just keep going all day long. All right, so we have another question coming in. Do scientists believe that ocean acidification impacts the radula of snails as well as their outer shell? Wow. Okay, that is from somebody else I know out there online. That is from Miss Mandy. So shout out to our friends at C School Preschool. So the radula of a snail, that is something that they use to help them break down food and to help them eat. Now, you might want to Google that. I don't know if I know that answer to that question. I do know that those shells are definitely impacted. So I think what we would have to think about, scientists, is we would have to think about, what is that radula made out of? Is it made out of calcium carbonate, or is it a different substance? Is it something like chitin or keratin? Scientists, you stump me. So I invite you all to Google that. That's a really great question. All right, so I just want to check on the time here. Okay, we are getting close to our end. So thank you all so much for your wonderful questions today. I'm really happy you stumped me. So Google's going to get a lot of hits on hermit crabs today and on radula snails. That is for sure. So what I want to remind you to do is that you all can take this further. Of course, you can keep making your observations of our experiments that we started. Again, visit EarthEcho's website, www.earthecho.org, to learn more. Check out Expedition Shell Shocked. We have great videos, great activities that you can continue to do at home as well. Now, something else that you can do is tune in for more snack-sized science. In fact, on Friday, April 3rd at 12 p.m. Eastern, we will be looking at fabulous fun with pH. And we will meet two new scientists, Stacy and Vivi Rose. And of course, be sure to subscribe to EarthEcho International's YouTube channel, as well as all of our social media channels. We send out on our social media channels the supplies and materials you will need for our future snack size science. Say that 10 times fast, I dare you. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you all along with us for our fun experiment. And from all of us here at EarthEcho International, please stay healthy and safe. And above all, keep exploring. Bye-bye, everyone.